Welcome back to Your Legacy Radio. My name is Scott Tansill. As I said, you're listening to Your Legacy Radio, brought to you by River Wealth Solutions. And I talked a lot about River Wealth, but if you want more information about River Wealth Solutions, how can they help you find assets that you currently have, turn those assets into funds that you need, you can call them directly at 866-500-2922. That's 866-500-2922. If you want more information about the Living Resource Benefit, again, you can find that online, livingresourcebenefit.com. One thing I want to discuss throughout this segment, and I've got Joe Del Monte from Accelerated Wealth on the line with me, and I want to talk with Joe, who helps individuals not just set up guaranteed index accounts, but also managed accounts within the financial markets. But if you're going to find someone to do that for you, you want the right person. And one thing that River Wealth Solutions does is we vet out our partners. So we discuss with our partners what it is we're looking to accomplish for the clients. In this case, someone who's terminally ill and their families. And we make sure that it's a good fit for us to partner with in this scenario, Accelerated Wealth and Joe Del Monte. Because when you create that living resource benefit, an example would be someone creates a living resource benefit for $150,000. They want to use $50,000, and then they want to take that $100,000 and they want to do something else with it. So, Joe, I'm going to bring you in at this point. It's great to have you on the show. I appreciate you taking out your time.
Great. Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're excited. We're excited. I think this is going to be some really, really good and valuable information for an individual because, that's something that a lot of times someone would think about. If they're going to create a living resource benefit, they're going to sell their life insurance policy. They're going to use $50,000 for medical expenses or to pay off debt or to travel or just to live life, enjoy their life. But then they have $100,000 left over. What are your thoughts? And I know there's a lot of different directions we could go. What are your thoughts? The guaranteed indexed account, I guess we'll start with that. If they want to put it into a guaranteed indexed account, what would be the benefits of doing that?
Well, there's a number of benefits to doing that. And obviously, Scott, it's going to go on a case-by-case basis, much like, with what you guys do as far as consulting with the client, trying to figure out what's the best solution to that specific problem. Well, once that problem is solved, maybe the guaranteed indexed account is a solution for the second problem, which is, they've gotten their living benefit. Now they have extra cash. Benefits right on the face of this thing is pretty clear. When you look at guaranteed indexed account, well, obviously the word guarantee is attractive, especially in this marketplace. I think, many people have lost money multiple times. They're getting to a point in life where they realize maybe chasing after a big return is not necessarily the best use of my dollar.
Right.
So people are looking for a guarantee. And the way that a guarantee is going to work on a guaranteed index account would be, picture if you started investing, Scott, at, let's say, 20 years old, and everything that you put away, you had some years where you made money, and you had some years where you didn't do so well. But the years you didn't do well, you only took a zero. Mm-hmm. So every year that you made money, you've always kept the money that you've made. And that's essentially how a guaranteed indexed account would work. You have potential upside with protection to the downside. There's no drawdowns on this type of account. The other thing is it's tied to the performance of an index. So people don't just want a fixed rate of return. You can get a fixed rate of return on certain types of products out there for, 1.5%, 2% maybe. But what happens when the market does have a great year and it's up 15% and you just got 1.5%? Well, you're going to kind of feel left out, and that's the power of this type of product is that there's a guarantee, your gains are locked in, the downside is protected. But if you have good years in the marketplace, you can capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And so that's the initial benefit.
Right.
Beyond that, there's a lot of other things that go into it. You can create a living legacy, for, maybe a spouse, kids, grandkids. There's long-term care protection available in these as well, which is a whole nother issue that we try to solve with people.
Yeah.
So just, kind of a host of benefits. But at the end of the day, I think what it offers that people are really looking for is peace of mind, safety, security, reliability.
Yeah. I know the clients that we work with, that's what they're looking for because, affected by a terminal illness, I talk about this a lot, 35 years or 40 years old today, but 35 years ago, I was affected by a terminal illness. Doesn't mean you're at your end. It just means it's something that you need to deal with. And it's something that when individuals are affected by a terminal illness, they want to get everything in order. And the last thing they want to do is to take another chance with capital that they receive from a living resource benefit. They want to use some of it to live their life, but the remaining funds they want to protect just in case it does take them from this earth, and the effect does cause them to leave this earth and go on to much bigger and better things. But they want to leave it behind for their family to be protected. And, you and I talk about a lot as far as, and I have this question from clients, well, what about the markets? This guaranteed indexed account, yeah, that sounds good, but, you're still not making the total upside. But at this point within the markets, and I'm going to let you explain your thought process on it, what would you say to that question or that comment?
Well, we do manage a lot of money in the markets as well, Scott, and we manage money in a different way than I would say a lot of firms out there. Manage assets. We're not believers in a buy and hold strategy. We don't believe that the market's going to be good to us over the long term. And we've seen that proven over the last 15 years. I mean, quite frankly, these markets over the last 15 years, it's a completely different ball game than it was, 70s and 80s and early 90s. So we have to treat the game different. We have to play by the rules of the game. However, we have opportunities for people to be involved in the market if it's upside that they're looking for. Mm-hmm. One thing that we do is mitigate their risk. We have what we call an active managed strategy. So where, a lot of people are going into a buy and hold strategy. They're basing their investment on, modern portfolio theory, which is, this theory that was developed in the 50s. A guy named Harry Markowitz created it. Great idea in the 50s, 60s, 70s, even the 80s. Diversify stocks versus bonds, large cap versus small cap, domestic versus international. Great idea. In the 80s, everything was going up, and you wanted to kind of spread your risk around. You could buy and hold and do that. Nowadays, you need an active strategy that allows you to make moves in the markets with surgical precision on a daily basis, on a regular basis. Right. And so we have what we call the data-driven approach. The data is going to tell us the signal that we're going to use in the market and how to get out and when to get out. So we're going to limit our downside even when we're involved in the markets and be, in a better position to take advantage of the upside. Now, that being said, it comes down to kind of a mindset and a preference for the individual. I think a lot of people have been conditioned, especially, a lot of people that you're probably dealing with, Scott, as you see they're getting up in age, and they come from a time where they're looking for returns on their money. Yeah. And, we've all been kind of conditioned over the years to chase this return. It's like if we knew the market did 20% and we got 15%, we were a little disappointed.
Right.
Where'd that other 5% go? There's starting to be a shift in the thinking now where people are getting more educated on the concept of win by not losing and how that looks over time. So there's strategies for people to get involved in the market. That is absolutely something that we do, but it's the right amount for the right person.
Right.
Typically, we find when we're first talking with somebody that they are taking on way more risk than they need to be taking, but they don't know it yet until they sit down and do an analysis. So.
And you and I have worked together for a couple of years, and that's the scenario with anything to do with finances. It just seems like individuals, a lot of times they're not even aware they're in the markets and they have mutual funds. And it's like, what do you mean you're not in the markets? You're totally in the markets.
Yep.
And you're at 100% risk. So, you gotta manage that in the proper way. And I've got a lot more questions for you that I want to jump into in the next section, the next segment. But if you want more information about the accelerated wealth or the guaranteed indexed account or managed assets, managed funds, or if you're saying, you know what, I need to create the living resource benefit first, let me get that in place, and then I'll move forward. That's where River Wealth Solutions comes in, is to say, okay, what's first, what's second, what's third? How do we manage this this in the best possible way to alleviate stress from you. Put it on us, and then you can deal with the things that you need to deal with. Call us if you have more questions. It's 866-500-2922. That's 866-500-2922. We'll be right back with more Legacy Radio right after this. Welcome back to Your Legacy Radio on News Talk 1110 WBT and on WBT.com. Had somebody send in a message, said, hey, give out that number again and give it out slower. So I'm evidently giving out that number too quickly. It's 866-500-2922. That's 866-500-2922. That will connect you directly with River Wealth Solutions, which is an organization that is here to help provide and help create a more fulfilled life for an individual and an individual's family affected by a terminal illness. What I've seen within the financial world and being affected by a terminal illness is, as Americans, we typically don't do things we need to do until we need to do it, or we have to do it. I won't say we need to do it. We need to do it all along the path of life, but a lot of times we don't do it until we have to do it. And what I've seen is when someone is affected by a terminal illness, or a family is affected by a terminal illness, or there's a decision that has to be made for mom or dad or grandma or grandpa as far as putting them into a nursing home facility, that's when the decisions start to get made, or at least start to be looked at. But then it's so daunting, and there's so many stressful things that are going on at that moment in life, within that season of life that the individual and their family is going through, that it just creates too much. And even at that point, when they really have to focus on it, they don't focus on it, and they end up making mistakes within assets that they have and treating them in an improper way just because of lack of knowledge. So my thought for years, probably 15 years or so, 10 or 15 years, has been to create an organization that would help an individual at that point in life when they have so many things that are stressful to deal with, that the organization can take a lot of that off of them, help them find the right resources, help them find the right transactions, help them find the right partners to work with them in creating whatever the situation might be. If it's, I got an insurance policy, I want to create a living resource benefit, great. Let's work towards creating that. Let's create that at a fast pace, even to the point of getting funding within 24 to 48 hours. I've seen that happen with these living resource benefit transactions. So, and a lot of times that's how quick the funds need to be in place. And then after you receive the funds, how do you take those funds and create whatever else it is that you want to create as far as your financial management? In the example of accelerated wealth, it would be a guaranteed indexed account. Joe Del Monte is still on the phone with me. And Joe, I appreciate you again for being on the show. I skipped right over something that I wanted to start out with in the last segment, and that is you and I did this because you and I have known each other for so long, but the listeners are just getting to know you. So why don't you tell about your history and your past and what brought you to Accelerated Wealth and what your drive is in being a part of Accelerated Wealth?
Sure, yeah. Great question. I've been in the financial industry, Scott, now for a little over a decade, and when I got into the industry, I had a real strong passion for it. I wanted to learn every aspect of it because there's a thousand different investments out there. There's different products. There's different strategies. And I really wanted to get my arms wrapped around it. So, I've been in everything from, operations to compliance to manage money to, gas and oil drilling investments, to real estate investments, commodities, even, education for people who are looking to learn to trade and manage their own wealth. So all along the way, I was always kind of looking for something to really get my arms wrapped around that I could say, I'm just completely in love with this. And I got to be honest, I fell out of love with the industry. It sounds kind of weird, but there were a few things that started to just get to me over the years. And it got me to the point where I took a close to 3-year hiatus from the industry completely, kind of unplugged, turned off, and got out. A couple of things that I just was noticing along the way is, in my mind, I think the industry is kind of skewed the wrong way. There's a difference between having the permission or legal allowance to practice as a financial professional, and there's the difference between having the ability to deliver upon that. And there's a lot of people out there who are allowed to practice, but maybe don't necessarily have the ability to do it. They don't have the strategies. They haven't been properly trained. They were kind of pushed through the big, the big industry funnel, so to speak, and now they're pushing a product, and as if one product could be a solution. So that was always kind of something that got to me. So I was looking for a way to kind of get my hands on something that would talk about strategy first. Mm-hmm. Like building a house. If you ever built a house, Scott, I don't know if you have or not, but you would start with the blueprint first. You would start with scoping out land, getting an idea, getting a vision. You wouldn't start with the granite countertops and the ceiling fans. That doesn't make any sense. So, that on top of the industry as a whole kind of having this buy and hold strategy, and me personally, I've seen my parents, go up and down in that, and that was kind of disheartening for me being in the industry. So, long story short, kind of got out of it, took a hiatus. A friend of mine, real good friend of mine, who's been in the industry now for a couple decades, created his own fund, started to learn more about accelerated wealth, and said, hey, you need to check these guys out. They think the same way you do. And, long story short, I found Accelerated Wealth, did my due diligence on them, and everything that I was frustrated with in the industry, they built their business around that, around trying not to be that. We consider ourselves wealth strategists, not just financial advisors or planners. That means that we call the play. We're a quarterback, but we know that there's other team members that we got to pull in.
Right.
I would not walk around my community touting that I'm a professional in the living benefits. Mm-hmm. That's why you and I, Scott, are working together.
Right.
So that just kind of drew me, in with them. And I'll say this: the icing on the cake was that Accelerated Wealth has another mission that they use through their business. They're huge proponents of fighting against human trafficking. And our headquarters is based in Colorado Springs. We have a home there, a ranch in Colorado Springs, and if you want, people can look it up online. It's called the Wildflower Ranch. If you go to restoreinnocence.org, restoreinnocence.org, you can look it up, and we house girls who have been victims of human trafficking. Not only that, we have now locked in a partnership with a local trucking company based out of Charlotte, whose their name is Vigilante Truckers. And their whole mission is to fight human trafficking on roadways and truck stops. So, that's kind of the cool behind-the-scenes stuff that we get to be a part of through Accelerated Wealth. So
that's awesome.
Got my passion back. Found something I can wrap my arms around for sure.
And that's key, and that's one of the main reasons that River Wealth Solutions is a partner with Accelerated Wealth and I love the analogy of what you said as far as building the house, because to build a house you need multiple contractors.
Absolutely.
You need multiple people to come in. The plumber's not going to be framing your house, and the framer's not going to be, running the electricity. And the electrician's not going to be building your pool. You need all these different people to come in to build the house of, and I've said it for a long, long time, as far as individuals' finances, they need to think of that as a house. You're building a financial house that will be here after you're gone if you build it properly. Just like your physical house will. But if you don't build it properly, it's probably not going to be here, when you do leave this earth, because it's just going to fall apart. You have your plumber framing your house, and you got major issues. And and going back to the thought process of lack of knowledge, that's where individuals actually get a plumber to start framing their house financially. Is that they don't know, a lot of times individuals will say, oh, yeah, I can, like if I said, okay, yeah, I can create a guaranteed indexed account for you, that would not be true. Now, I could say it in a way that individuals would believe it. That's not who I am. That's not what I would do. But there are individuals out there that would do that. And that's where I saw this extreme need, especially with the fragile stories that we're dealing with, and the fragile individuals and their families that we're dealing with, again, having so much stress with so many different areas. They don't need stress of okay, well, are they really going to do the right thing? Have they really looked into these individuals? We definitely have looked into the organizations and the partners that we've had come on with us. And I think you could hear by Joe's story that he's a fantastic guy, and Accelerated Wealth is an unbelievable company. So So we can help you connect with them and kind of figure out what the best path would be as far as the assets that you either have or you're looking to create through the living resource benefit. I've got about a minute 30, and I want you to tell your thought process, because I know it's on the minds of a lot of individuals, especially if they've been affected by a terminal illness. Kind of going back to what we started to discuss in the last segment. Put it into the markets, put it into a guaranteed indexed account. Well, the question can be answered by what's going to happen in 2016, because we're in a falsely inflated market. We're in a market that's at all-time highs and pushed up by nothing but free money from the U.S. government. That's my mindset. But what are your thoughts that's going to happen in end of 2015 and 2016?
Gosh, Scott, I think anybody that's in this industry, in the financial industry, we're all looking at each other every day saying, how is this even where it is right now? When is this thing going to correct itself? And, really we all want it to correct itself because we need real value in the marketplace. We need things to be worth what they're really worth, not, artificially inflated. So, the past 2 days in the market have been rough days, but, we're only 3% off of the highs. So we haven't yet made that big move. But if you were to look at the markets and see what a strong move we've made over 5 years, now we've been in this period of consolidation for the last, number of months now. Everything is telling me that, we're at the top. Things are going to start falling through the ice, and it's just a matter of time. So I would not be in a position to be telling people to buy aggressively right now.
Yeah.
Protection is number one.
Yeah, there's too much going on. I mean, it's too dicey, and history says that when you go through an election, major election season, you're going to have some turbulence, and when you wrap everything else that's going on into that thought process, it can get very, very dicey, and you would not want to try to face it alone, no matter how many books you've read.
This is not a place for amateurs to dabble. That's for sure.
Not at all. So listen, Joe, I really appreciate you being on the show with me. It's been great to talk with you. Thanks for taking out your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, take care. So what I want to do is kind of wrap back into, we talked a lot about finances, a lot about proper management of the finances, but a lot of individuals, when I sit down with them for the first time, their first question isn't, what do I do with the finances? It's, where do I get the finances? I'm affected by a terminal illness. Where do I create the funds that I need? And my next question will be, okay, well, do you have a life insurance policy? Most of the time, the answer is yes, coming back to me. If it's not, then we have to figure something else out. Is it real estate? Is it a pension plan? Is it, where do we go to find these funds? But if it's a life insurance policy, that's easy. That's a simple transaction. Let's create a living resource benefit, take that policy, create funds from that policy, and then utilize those funds for whatever it is you want to utilize them for. If you want more information about a living resource benefit, you can go to livingresourcebenefit.com, or you can call River Wealth Solutions directly at 866-500-2922. That's 866-500-2922. When we get back, I want to discuss what does it look like for a facility who uses a living resource benefit to create funds for a resident to enter their facility and live there for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. So we'll discuss that. What happens as far as the transaction? How does it work for the facility? We'll be right back with more of Your Legacy Radio right here on News Talk 1110 WBT and on WBT.com.